Bringing Colonel North. Is this really an American half in and half out effort, or are the Ukrainians getting everything that they need?
Leland, Tom's absolutely right. Zelensky's under enormous pressure right now from Russian troops in eastern Ukraine and from our NATO allies. Now, Biden made a big deal of $1 billion in new security assistance, but unfortunately, the weapons and ordnance being shipped aren't what the Ukrainian Army, Navy, and Air Force need the most. Which material would allow the largest diplomatic delegation to go to visit Ukraine today, since the Russian invasion, trying to put more pressure on Kyiv to start some kind of negotiations to end the war? For weeks now, there's been a quiet campaign pressuring Zelensky to sit down and talk peace with Putin. The Turks, a supposed NATO ally, has offered to host the peace talks. So too is the Vatican and others, according to my sources. Here's why this is happening. Biden is surrounded by people who fear Putin and his threats of using tactical nukes and/or chemical weapons. We should give Ukraine whatever they need to win and restore all of Ukraine's sovereign territory. Good lesson for Xi Jinping and the People's Republic of China regarding Taiwan. They're also watching the U.S. surrender our own sovereignty on our southern border. And we've seen millions crossing that border. Since July 2000, when Clinton and Putin met at the G8 summit on Okinawa, there have been hundreds of Russian military and civilian officials visiting the United States and our counterparts. I predict this. If Putin gives the order to use a tactical nuclear weapon, it won't be carried out because the chain of command knows better. No one is going to win a nuclear war. It certainly won't be Russia.
The idea of them not taking the order or following it may be one of the reasons it hasn't been given, interestingly enough. Drill down a little bit, though, more in terms of what the strategy here is for the United States, because the Ukrainians are losing about 200 soldiers a day. The Russians are losing more, but the Russians have an unlimited supply of men and of equipment as well. Is American policy essentially to send Ukrainian boys to die until the Russians run out of ammunition?
Well, the Russians aren't going to run out of ammunition, and the Russians do have tactical nuclear weapons. I don't believe they would dare use them. I think the generals who would have to carry that out know better. The real problem is Zelensky's been left out in the cold. Zelensky was told by us and by the leadership of NATO, we're with you to win. We ought to be. There cannot be a Russian victory. A Russian victory could be claimed by saying the eastern portion of the country and Odessa will be ours, and of course Crimea will stay ours forever. That's what the Russians really want out of this thing. Now, that doesn't mean that 5 years from now they're not going to be aggressing some other eastern NATO countries. And the NATO countries that joined NATO after the end of the Soviet Empire, those are the ones most urgently trying to get aid through, and it includes Poland and Romania as well.
Right, no, they're watching
aid through to Zelensky and his forces.
Yeah, they're watching what's happening right now in Ukraine and saying, okay, NATO promises Ukraine help. Will NATO stand up for us? The video you were seeing was from today, and yesterday Zelensky had a huge European delegation in. You make a great point about the eastern part of Ukraine that Russia has sort of begun to shave off. They occupy it. It's where I was in 2014. It's ethnically Russian, so they have the benefit of the population on their side. Their supply lines.
I'm not entirely sure
Let me just ask the question, though.
Because
at some point, no matter how much firepower we give the Ukrainians, can they kick the Russians out of there?
No. What I'm saying to you is that Ukraine needs to continue to fight until even the Russian speakers in eastern Ukraine believe that Putin has committed a terrible genocide. They use the word themselves in Russian. Now, what I'm saying is we cannot afford, for the future of us and the future of NATO and the future of other organizations like NATO in places like the Pacific Ocean area, the Indo-Pacific theater, if you will, because they're watching very carefully what we're willing to do to help Ukraine win against Russia. We ought to be doing that.
Yeah, you make a great point about how the world is watching how America responds to this and what we, not only what we are doing, probably more importantly, what we're not. Lieutenant Colonel North, good to see you, sir, as always. Thank you.
Thank you, Leland. Semper Fi, buddy.
All right, there we go. Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.